Now, for those of you who don't know, RoboCop vs. Terminator is actually based on a miniseries of comics by Dark Horse that started back in 1992. And, interestingly enough, it was also written by the same guy known as Frank Miller, who happens to hate Superman. Yeah, you know, that guy.
It takes elements from both franchises and puts them together for an interesting one-shot story. And it does make sense to put these two movies together. They were both iconic films from the 80s, which dealt with things like horror, science fiction, social commentary, and dystopian futures. Not to mention they featured the two most kick-ass robots in cinema history.
In any event, the video games were developed by Virgin Games, with the Super Nintendo version being developed by Interplay in 1993, while the Sega Genesis version would come 1 year later in 1994 and developed by Virgin Games USA. But enough about the history lesson, so let's just play the games and see how they measure up with one another.
The Super Nintendo graphics are indeed dark, and do capture the mood of a graphic novel. All the levels take place at night or in giant buildings. This aspect both works for and against the game. While it does present the immersive feeling of a dire cyberpunk setting, some levels lack detail. The character designs are decent enough, as both RoboCop and the Terminators do look more faithful to their original designs. Although RoboCop does kind of look like he has hind legs. But overall, the graphics are okay, if nothing super special.
The Sega Genesis graphics are dark as well, but there is better use of color that makes the environment stand out a whole lot more. In fact, the game is a great deal more colorful. And most importantly, the detail. This combination makes the game pop out more, but what really catches our attention are the character designs. RoboCop and the Terminators look like they were ripped right off of their respective movies. How they look, how they move, they really knocked it out of the park. And speaking of knocking out, holy there's a lot of blood. Just like with the original Mortal Kombat game, the Sega Genesis version had blood, while the Super Nintendo version did not. And boy, did Sega take advantage of this. When you shoot humans, they do not just pop, bleed, and fall over. No, they explode into glob and piles of red gore. Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! We love it. Also, as opposed to the Super Nintendo counterpart, RoboCop looks blue, which is what he really should look like since, well, he's a cop after all. Yeah, a cop that'll turn you into a puddle of blood if you break the law, but still, upstanding guy. Another nice effect is that when you fire off the gun, you can actually see a small light reflection off of RoboCop. This is really nice attention to detail that I really enjoy.
For the Super Nintendo, we start off with this pretty sweet title card. Although, nitpick, the TM trademarks have always been pretty annoying. In between levels, cutscenes are presented in a comic book form with panels. This can be surprisingly tricky to pull off, but here it is done pretty well, staying true to the comic book origins of the story. This makes the story easy to follow and does a good job of connecting the levels. And there are also moments sprinkled throughout that helps advance the story as well.
Now for the Sega Genesis, the entire story is explained before the title screen via a text wall scroll, which ends with the words saying, "Get ready." Sad to say, there are no cutscenes in between levels, so yeah, ultimately you just go from one scene to the next. The game does get the story out of the way though, and it just allows you to focus on the action without breaking up the pace.
The Super Nintendo version does feature a very heavy robotic sound, which is very reminiscent to a James Cameron Terminator movie. The music does get the job done. Although the cutscene music can be a little on the boring side. The sound effects are adequate as well, as they do fit the time period that you're in. And there's something so satisfying about hearing RoboCop's feet clanking around while he walks. And in the future, the guns have a nice laser sound effect.
The soundtrack, however, on the Sega Genesis version, ironically enough, sounds like it came directly out of a RoboCop movie. With a lot more lively beats, we have to say that the more synthesized system of the Sega Genesis was put to a lot of real good use here. However, there was one strange choice, and, well, that was when you enter a boss fight. Turns out there's actually no music at all. Weird. I guess they were trying to make it epic. The sound effects also fit the more cartoonish over-the-top violence of this version as well, from the gunshots to the blood-curdling screams.
Terminator.
And there was some nice voice acting in here as well, from the Ed 209 to RoboCop himself saying when he finds a new weapon.
RoboCop vs. the Terminator features labyrinth-type levels, where you will travel left to right to left, up and down, etc., etc. While you are trudging along as RoboCop, you'll be shooting everything in sight. Well, obviously. As the metal cop, you are not exactly fleet of foot, but fortunately, he can tank quite a few shots. And to help, there are temporary invincibility power-ups, health blocks, and extra lives. Your handgun is necessary, but not sufficient. So be on the lookout for more powerful weapons, such as rocket launchers and heat seekers. But the best is the arm cannon from the Ed 209. So much fun. Things are going along swimmingly until you get to the first Terminator. Oh god. Die. Please die. Will you please finally? I know it's a Terminator, but damn. Now imagine this 500,000 times when you get to the future. Spoiler. These things are frickin' everywhere. Man, the future blows. But these weapons are more powerful, so it all balances out. Sort of. Fortunately, there are unlimited continues.
The Sega version, more or less, is the same way, just with a lot more blood and gore. Like we mentioned before, but here, the guns are also way cooler. And trust me, you're gonna need them, because the handgun is pretty much worthless against bosses in this game. Fortunately, you have a lot of Contra-style spread shots, spasm bullets that go all over the... what the hell? But the best weapon of all is the grenade launcher, that shoots rapid grenades in a very slow pace, but in bunches, and what's really cool is you can control where they go with the D-pad. My god, it lays waste to absolutely everything and just might be the most OP gun in video game history. Look at this. Well, this is pretty cool. I gotta say, the lesser guns in the future are pretty cool as well. But you will need to be very offensive-minded, because here you cannot tank as many shots as you can in the Super Nintendo version. But like the Super Nintendo version, you can also get some power-ups to help you along the way. Unfortunately, though, you do have limited continues. Darn. But not to worry, just like many old games back in the day, there is one more thing we would like to mention. The Sega Genesis version has cheat codes, and boy are they awesome and make the game more enriching. Shut up. There is nothing wrong with cheating. If you're not cheating, you are not trying. Check out these cheats, like Turbo Mode, where you move super fast, and oh, I like this one, Real Mode, where instead of just fighting normal enemies, you can shoot scantily clad women. Oh, wow. Yeah, that didn't sound too right. But you want to know what does sound right? RoboCop 2 is in this game. And that is okay with us.
So there you have it. Our reviews for the games for RoboCop versus the Terminator. So which one was the best? That's up for you to decide. Let us know in the comments below. And if you have any ideas for any future episodes, please let us know.
Meanwhile, as always, thank you for watching. You've been watching the BrotherhoodOfGaming.com's video reviews of Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo, and we will see you next time. Please let us know what to do. We crave it. We need it. We need your involvement. Come on, let's do it.